Hey guys, in this lecture, we will create together this line's transition. So let's get started. First thing I'll do is that I'll hit Ctrl or Command N on keyboard to create a new composition. I will call it Lines Transition and I'll make it 30 frames per second and 2 seconds long. Then click OK. Now I'll double click on the project panel to import my footage. Now go to the Tools bar, select the Rectangle tool, change the fill to solid color, the stroke to none, and draw a simple shape like this. Select this layer and rename it to Line 1. So hit return on keyboard, type in Line 1, then hit return again. Now open up Rectangle 1, open up Rectangle Path 1, then unlink the size values here and change them to 1920 and 120. You can use any height value you want, but on this value will depend the total numbers of lines you create and their position in the composition. So keep this in mind. Now move the anchor point for this Line 1 layer to its center using the Move Anchor Point panel and align the layer to the top like this. This will be the final position of the shape, so select the layer and hit P on keyboard to get the position control. Move to 1 second. Click on the stopwatch beside position. Move to the first frame and change the X position value to -960. This will make the transition start from the left side. If you want to make it start from the right, change the X value to 2880. Select both keyframes and add Easy Ease by either hitting F9 on keyboard or right-click Keyframe Assistant Easy Ease. Then go to the graph editor and in the speed graph, drag this point inward. As I told you, depending on the height of the shape layer, you have to create a certain number of lines and animate their position. In this case, we will need 9 lines, and we will use expressions to make their creation easier. So here I'll hold down Alt key and click on the stopwatch beside position. This will open up a text field here so we can add our script. So what is an expression? After Effects is a great tool for prototyping UI animations, but we are always looking for ways to speed up our workflow. After Effects comes with support for expressions, which create relationships between layer properties or keyframes so the designer can animate layers without defining each keyframe by hand. And Adobe based their expression language on JavaScript to be typed in the text field opened here. So here I will write x equals, then grab this pick whip and parent it to the x position value. This will tell the program that at any moment it has to use the x value, which is already animated with keyframes. Then I'll add semicolon and jump to a new line, then type in y equals open bracket index. The index here represents the individual order number of each layer that you can see here, multiplied by 120. This number represents the height of your shape layer. So if you used a different height, put that number instead. Then type in close bracket minus 60. This number represents half of the height value, so again, if you used a different height, divide it by 2 and place that number instead. Add semicolon and jump to a new line. Type in open square bracket x, comma, y, then close square bracket. This will tell After Effects which variables to use as horizontal and vertical position values. Now click anywhere outside of this text field to save the expression. And now let's animate the scale as well. So hit Shift S on keyboard to get the scale control. My time indicator is at the beginning of my timeline. Click on the stopwatch beside scale. Unlink the values here and change the Y value to 90%. Move to 1 second and 5 frames, then change the value to 101%. Why 101%? To avoid the gap which sometimes can be seen between the shapes if you use 100%. Now select your layer and duplicate it by hitting Ctrl or Command D. As you can see here, the index number increases together with the number of layers you have, and this will give the right position of each layer. Now we'll create a total of 9 line layers. Now let's click on the RAM preview and see what we have so far. Great! So now the transition already works. But to make it more interesting, let's offset randomly the start time of each like this. Now this looks great. Moving on, I'll create a new composition and call it slideshow. I'll make it 4 seconds long, but you can make it as long as you need for your projects. Drag and drop your footage on the timeline, and also drag the lines transition composition which we have created. Place it on top of the image or video that you want to be affected. Then select your footage and the transition layers. Move to the point where the transition should begin. In this case, I'll move to 1 second, then hit open bracket to move its endpoint to the time indicator. At this moment, your transition looks like this. But if you change the track matte of your footage layer to alpha matte, the magic will happen. To even make it more interesting, duplicate these 2 layers and offset them 10 frames. Select the bottom footage copy, then go to the Effects and Presets panel and search for an effect called Brightness and Contrast. Drag and drop it on this bottom footage copy. Then in the Effect Settings panel, change the brightness value to around 60. And now let's click on the RAM preview and see what we have so far. Perfect, it looks great! But as you can see here, at this point the image doesn't show anymore. So find a point where the image is fully visible. Then bring a new copy of it, place it on top, and change its start point here. Now let's check the final result. Perfect! So now we know how to create this nice lines transition. I hope you're enjoying so far. Thank you so much for watching and looking forward to seeing you next lecture.